Hello, everybody. It is Heather and Deb on The Skeptic and the Mystic. We are on episode 60 today, whatever time you're listening to this. And this is all about stepping into a higher frequency of energy for a prosperous life. And we've been covering the different universal laws that are universal. Like you just kind of can't get away with them. And so today, I'm saying a lot. What's going on? We're talking about the idea of like, why is it that some people seem to get so much abundance, other people not so much? What are some things that you can do to shift and change so that you can have and create the life that you want? And create is a big key word because it's not that. Well, we'll dive into that. We'll dive into why, why it's a big key word. So I'm a dork. I like to review things, and you might be jumping in, and this may be the first episode. So we want to review the laws that we've talked about already, just so you have an understanding and a foundation. And understanding these things just helps you to work with life better when you can understand them and help create peace and harmony in your life. Because if you're suffering, more than likely, it's because you're working in opposition to these universal laws.
Right. You're a little out of alignment, maybe.
Yes. Yeah. So do you want to start the review?
Yes. I don't know, are these in the order that we did them before? I don't know what order we covered them in, but we have covered so far the law of polarity, which I liked that one. That's about basically that there's two sides to everything, right? There's always there can't be dark without light. There's, the earth has a North Pole and a South Pole. And because there is always going to be an opposite, if you deem one end of that pole bad, it means that the good also exists. And we kind of need both to keep balance in the universe. So
I just want to interrupt you. And just because we kind of need both. We need both.
We straight up need both. And I guess my favorite top point within that is the masculine feminine energies, which we should just do an episode specifically about masculine feminine in particular. I think we did dive into it on the polarity episode, but I will nerd out all day about that one and actually have some new inspirations around that, but we'll save that. We'll table that. But okay, next we did, or I don't know in what order we did, but we also covered law of inspired action, which is, that one, it seems so obvious to me, right? But it's different than forcing crap to happen.
Yeah. I love this one because I've experienced this when I have really been when I look back at all the things that were easy in my life that were, that created big impacts. It was because I had this divine download and all of a sudden it was like, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to do this. And I didn't necessarily know the whole entire picture of how to do something, but I just knew that, oh, wait, there's this next step that I have to take. And I was so completely okay with the uncertainty. Yeah. And I feel like I'm in that right now. There's stuff that I'm creating and I'm like, I don't know how it's going to get done. I don't know how it's going to happen. I just know I just need to do this one thing.
Yeah.
And then it'll all come out.
Like being in flow. Because I feel like I'm in a phase of that right now too. And maybe that's just also practicing it. I want to bring something up. It's not even mine. I think I've gotten this from Abraham Hicks, but I love the distinction that they offer pretty much. But I really do think it resonates with me is, are you coming from inspiration or motivation? Because motivation kind of has this heaviness, like I have to force myself to do it. Okay, yeah, I'm motivated to do that. But when you're inspired to do something, it's like a light, it's like, I just have to do that, right? So I guess that would be the way to define inspired action. It feels so obvious to me, but I think that is because I try to make an effort to function in that space. It's not always easy because there are sometimes things in life I have to motivate myself to do.
Right.
For sure. We also covered law of assumption. I think this is where we started with this because I totally
Yeah.
geeked out when I discovered law of assumption, which is different than the overall law of attraction piece, because my favorite thing about law of assumption is the foundation is in your self-concept and what you believe to be true. So whatever you believe to be true is true for you. And that is a big nugget.
I love this. I know we both geek out on this, but I love this so much because I would give an example. I have a client and she is learning about a lot of different concepts and learning about, she's taking a course with my coach right now. And they were talking about revision and revising your story. And the whole idea of that you can actually shift your timeline, right? By just revising your story. And revision is a term from, well, I mean, it's not just from him, but Neville Goddard, who talks a lot about manifestation, talks about this. So, and I'm sharing this because I know she posted this online. I know that she's okay with me sharing this. But we had a session and she's like, I'm just trying to really grasp, like get my head around this whole thing of revision. And I was teasing her and I was like, well, we've done this many times. Like we have revised your story many times. And so I was like, let's do it. Let's go. Let's do that in this session. And so she had this story about her birth and what it meant about her being born and her relationship with her mother. And a lot of, I mean, as we all do, right, have like none of us have these absolute perfect parents. And if they were perfect, it was that we'll always find something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so she, as I took her through this process, this conscious energy coaching that I do, where like we literally go in and clear out the trapped emotions of trauma that are keeping you stuck in that place. We go in and talk to that little, for her, it was like, there's a couple different ages of like her that we talked to, and got clear about what she needed so that she can, feel safe and loved and move forward in that timeline. And by the end of it, her story was so radically different. And it was like, oh my gosh, like my mother, like this whole thing that I had about like my voice isn't worthy of being heard. Like that wasn't mine. That was my mom's. And my mom is like, you don't need it anymore. And she shifted that. And then she shifted her relationship. Like her mother was her villain in the story, was the villain in her story. And by the end of it, her mother became like the support and walking alongside of her. It was so beautiful, so beautiful. Like, and I'm not doing it justice, but by the end, she was just like, oh my gosh, it's so completely different. And I was like, that's it. I'm like, that's revision. Like, like now, and so going back to the law of assumption, I'm like, now you have an assumption that your mom is your support, that she's a cheerleader for you in your life. Like that totally changes how you move forward in your life than if you assume that your mom, is there to sabotage you, doesn't think that your voice is worthy of being heard. Like it completely changes how she shows up in the world.
Totally. And that's, I think if anybody wants to go back and listen to our law of assumption episode, that one's so big and so powerful, because in that it will also change how her mother shows up for her.
Well, her mother's passed.
Seems wild.
But
okay. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
But you can do that with people in real life and change your assumption about how they're going to interact, and it will change how they interact.
Yeah. And I'm sure I've shared this one, but I think I've shared this with you, but I don't know if I've shared this with the audience. My mom, and she never listens to these, but she would be okay with this, because it's not something that's like hush hush in our family, and it's so silly. But my mom hums all the time, and have I told you this?
I don't remember.
Oh my gosh, it drives me batshit crazy.
I think you have mentioned
all the time. She's just always humming, and we'd get in these arguments all the time when I was growing up. And she'd be like, "Well, you just don't like it because you're miserable." And I'm like, "No, I'm not miserable. It just is annoying. Like it's like somebody walking around with a radio on, like like a boombox. Like I don't want to hear your music." So it drove me nuts. And then one day I realized, you know what? Like I'm letting it drive me nuts. I'm making that choice. And so I'm like, one day my mom is not going to be around, and I'm going to wish that my mom was around. And with my mom comes the humming. And so instead of getting irritated and annoyed with her, I decided that I was going to just love and appreciate every time hearing her hum. And I started doing that. And what was so fascinating is that this was a couple of years ago, I was at her house and I forget, something came up and said something about her humming. I can't remember which of us brought up it, but she was like, I've been really working hard to not hum when I'm around you. And I was like, oh my gosh, like once I stopped, and this goes into like resistance, what you resist for stuff. But once I decided to find the joy in it, like it didn't bother me anymore, but also it shifted her energy and she didn't realize it.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing how much control we have over our lives that we do not, we don't even exercise.
And you hit on a big piece of it, is so much of it is how we decide to respond to things.
Yes.
The decision. It is a decision. And we can catch ourselves. Takes practice, because we have talked about this endlessly, and I still have moments where I'm like not proud of how I was as a mom or whatever, but I can always go back and revise that too. I mean, like you can almost in real time do those things once you've practiced at it. So, that one, go back and listen to that episode if you'd like, because I love that episode and I could do it all over again. It made me, it's exciting stuff.
Right.
Okay. Then we also covered law of correspondence, which is not dissimilar to what we were just, they all are in my mind, so many of them are kind of the same thing over and over. But the law of correspondence is just saying kind of that your experience is a reflection of what you're assuming it to be or how you're feeling, right? Like that probably goes back more to the feeling is the secret kind of thing. But like what you are feeling and what you're projecting out is what is going to project back.
Yeah.
Right? Would you say that encapsulates it well?
Absolutely. And I want to share this one too. I'm sorry. Because I just finished this 3-day hypnotherapy training. And there's a lot of things that are very similar in the work that I do, because, with the body code, that's energy releasing, but there's a lot of help, getting people to be in a deeper state within themselves and getting clear about what you need to work on and working that out. But in one of my sessions yesterday that I had done on me, I had this whole thought in my mind that community is not safe. And I could give you the instances of this is why it's not safe. This is why it's not safe. This is, here's all the evidence, right? Which is what we do all the time. Here's my belief and here's all the evidence to show, right? And and so that was what I was getting. And so I've, really the past few years realized that I've kept myself from community because inside it said, this isn't safe. Right? And so that's what I was getting in my external environment. And it just reflected what I thought of in the past. And as we went through it, it was crazy because I realized, oh my gosh, it had nothing to do with community. Like every time I had a crappy situation within a community, I always had always had it at the very beginning where that person, like the head of the community or whatever, I just didn't like. I had a gut ugh, I don't like them. But everybody else was like, oh, they're great people. They're great. So I totally shut down my gut instinct, right? And listened to them. And then, whether it was 5 years later, 8 years later, whatever, it always ended up showing up. And realize that, oh, it's not that community isn't safe. Not listening to my intuition is not safe.
There you go.
Oh, it was so it just went and I was like, okay, I'm done. We don't even need to do anything more.
Right.
It is I got it. I got it,
Yeah, but there's so much of an awareness piece with that. And I think in that law of correspondence, if you just pay attention to listening to how people talk, whatever story someone's telling themselves about, people always abandon me or, men are shit, right?
Why do men always cheat on me? I saw this really funny TikTok, or not TikTok, it was a post, and it was this girl's like, why is my boyfriend on Tinder looking at other people? And then somebody said something, and she's like, you're missing the point. It has nothing to do with me being on there. It's like, how do you know that your boyfriend's on there? How did you find your boyfriend's profile if you're bitching and complaining about him being on there? But yeah.
But it is so much of it just goes back to, and so it's so subconscious sometimes, like you're saying in your situation.
Yeah.
but you have to get to that root of why, what is that feeling and what are you projecting? Because if there is any pattern, I have a shadow workshop coming up in a couple weeks that I'm like so excited to dig into that stuff, because whatever that freaking pattern is, you're creating it. Like, you are creating it. There's no way around it.
And that is the hardest thing. Like, oh gosh, some people that I see on a daily basis, like, I just hear them talk, and they're just like, I'm like, you are so committed to your limitations.
Yes.
Like, you are defending them, like, but you don't understand why it's so hard. And I'm like, yeah, but I do. And I get it, because I was the same way. Oh my gosh. Like, and that's what I was saying in this training, that just looking at my growth and change, like in 2014, that's when I got my master's in counseling in, I think, 2001, 2, 3, 4. I don't even remember. But then in 2014 was when I did my NLP training, neuro-linguistic programming training. Mm-hmm. And I, like, my personality type is like, if you can't, don't do it if I can't do it right. Like, it's not worth doing if I can't do it right. So I also have like this dreaded, like, I don't want to feel stupid, and I don't want people to think that I'm stupid. And so if there was something I couldn't do, I'm like, peace out, I'm leaving. Yeah. Right. And I look back and I see, like, in this hypnotherapy training, you have to have, people observe you doing it. And it's like, the old me would have been mortified and just wouldn't have shown up, but this time I was like, I changed the story, and I'm like, what does it mean when somebody's giving you help? It doesn't mean that you're stupid. Like, it just means that, like, you're learning a new modality, and it's okay. And I don't know how I even got started on that.
But I don't know, because we like tangents. What
right.
would this be without some tangents?
Well, no, because I always make sure, like, there's a point there, but I'm like, oh, the point is, like, that we're creating our reality. And so, like, I had such a much more enjoyable experience than, like, in the past, where I would, like, literally whine and be like, no, I can't do this, and cry. I shifted the story, and I shifted my experience. And I will tell you too, I found out something, like, at the very beginning of the workshop, I found out something that, like, was one of those things that was just like a trigger that, like, I could have totally set me off, but, like, I chose to, to completely change the story in that second, and, like, not let it hover over me while I was doing this training, where in the past I would have been like, I gotta leave, I gotta go talk to this person, da, da, da. And I was like, no, but we do, like, we make the choice.
Yes, we make the choice, and we are responsible for that choice. I will stand on that freaking soapbox of personal responsibility like no one's business, because you are creating it, and you're the only one that can change it. So if you find yourself complaining about anything, and I will even say, like, I have been very tired for the last, like, couple of weeks, because I do too much, but I do it to myself.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I wake up tired, and I'm like, you did it to yourself. You have a choice right now. Do you want to do all the things you agreed to do, or do you want to let something go? Like, those are your choices. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like this is going to be every podcast, but it's like, once we choose to take personal responsibility, like, that intention shifts everything. Everything.
It does. And it puts you, I don't really love, for whatever reason, the verbiage of, like, being in the power seat, because I guess that to me feels aggressive, but, like, it does put you in a place of power to then influence your experience.
Does the word empowered feel different for you?
Yes, empowered feels different. I think I just have a resistance to power, because it feels, I know it's my own context, but I don't like the idea that we're all trying to, like, barrel through and overtake others. And, like, that's the connotation that I hear sometimes when I hear people want power. That's my connotation, right? Like, I know that's, like, I don't have a better word. Empowered is good, because that's more, like, personal. And it doesn't seem like you're then, like, lowering someone else to raise you up, because that's what I have. I think that is not healthy power, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
Different.
have you read the book Power versus Force by David
No,
Hawkins?
I love his work. I started that book, and for whatever reason, I found it incredibly dry at the time, and I never went back to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I know the concept, and I love it, and I love
Yeah.
his other books. That one I could not. I don't know what it was. I didn't connect with it at first, and I've never gone back and tried.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it is stuff that we do as far as energy testing, like muscle testing, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, for anybody who's, listening, that the concept of power versus force is that when you are in alignment, when you are in flow, like when you are in your highest power, like you have this, like things, it's kind of like, just a knife through butter, like, like a sharp knife through, it just goes through, right? But force is, if you're not in alignment, you have a ton of resistances, you have trapped emotions, trapped trauma, trapped energy stuck in your body, then you're always trying to force something.
Yeah. I think maybe that's where the semantics of it, like I think I probably equate power and force together rather than, you know what I mean? Like there's something in my mind that I need to rework how I view that word, but
right.
Yeah. But
yeah.
In any case, all right. And then last week or last episode, which wasn't last week, but the last one we covered was the law of oneness. Yes.
Yes.
That was the most recent. So that's just basically saying it's all interconnected. That's the gist of that one. Like what you're doing, what I'm doing to you, I'm doing to me, and vice versa. That where there is no way of getting around the fact that every single thing we do has a ripple effect and is impacting the next thing. And like that we
can get really like nerdy on this and talk about when you heal yourself, you're healing 7 generations back, 7 generations forward, right? So when I do work and heal myself, it's like healing my family line. But here's the crazy part. I had an ayahuasca journey once where I was clearing out stuff, and it was like, this is this person's, this is this person's, and it got to my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, and it was like, you can release your story about that, but she wants to hold on to it, and my grandmom's dead, right?
Right.
Like she wants to hold on to that night, and it was like, okay, she can have it. But everything impacts, and it's so crazy because when you start to heal your stuff, the stories, I mean, gosh, like it's crazy when people are like, oh my gosh, I was healed this in me, and then this person in my family, this happened.
Right.
Everything that you do, your energy impacts everybody else, whether it's, in a positive, like a plus or a negative, your energy will always, 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 shift and change. So why not heal the stuff so that you
totally. And I think for a lot of us, it's sometimes easier to be kind to others than it is to be kind to ourselves. And just like kind of having that, I mean, like the kind thoughts and kind words. I know there are people that are very mean to others, but I think when you can kind of step outside of yourself and see that as like it, would you talk that way to your friends, talk kindly to yourself, and that ripples out to how kindly you behave with other people. Right. But I think there is something to be said for feeling like you're part of a bigger picture, right? Like what you're doing does not only impact you. So maybe you can think a little differently about that. Like the decisions that you make for yourself are decisions you make for other people. And I will say the other piece of that I think I often see people could do better is, say, for example, in a breakup, and then you're like, I hope he dies. I hope he's miserable with that bitch. I hope that she cheats on him, la, la, la. You're actually wishing all of that to happen to you all over again.
Yeah. You heard that country song? Like about like, I hope, it's like, it's all this sweet. And you're like, I hope that you guys have these long conversations that we did. I hope you have this, and then it's like, and then I hope she does to you what you did to me. And you're like,
well, I mean, music about jilted love is usually not going to be very
not very lovey.
No, not at all. I always think that's funny. Like years ago, I this is going to sound like I'm talking shit about someone. I don't even remember this person's name, but back when I was in my days of PR, like I remember I went and I was on this morning show with a client, and there was another guest there whose whole platform was basically like she was building a business on being the woman scorned. And I just thought, wow, you're just asking for like so much more of this. And she thought she was like saving all other women from experiencing this same thing. And I thought, I don't really know if this is like,
yeah.
It was like, oof, I don't think I'd want to build my whole like brand on scorn. I just wouldn't.
Yeah, there's somebody I follow on Instagram just because I was like, this is, it's one of those train wrecks. And I think that was the whole thing. Like, it was all on that. And I was just like, ugh.
Yeah. I mean, to each their own. I assume this was many years ago. I have no idea what this woman's name was. I would love to look her up and see if she moved through that and passed it. I hope so. But
yeah,
it was amusing. And this was well before I was really kind of deep in this stuff, but I definitely recognized that pretty easily. Like, wow, that's some heavy stuff you're talking about day in and day out.
Right. Yeah, more of that.
Yeah. All right. So that leads us into, I don't think we even divulged what is this magical law we're going to talk about.
Right. Yes. So today is all about the law of compensation, right? And you want to tie it back to the whole idea of stepping into higher frequencies of energy for a prosperous life, right? Because there are people that you see that they're like, you're like, how is it that like they just, have all these things, or have all this abundance, have this joy, have so many things in your life? And I think this one is a key one is that I know that when I first learned about The Secret, remember when The Secret came out?
Yeah.
Right. And it was like, well, you just have to think in your mind and it'll happen. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I could just think in my mind that this amazingly hot masculine man is going to come into my life and all I have to do is sit here. Like, oh, great. Right. And that's where like the inspired action comes in, those things. And where this one,
like The Secret left quite a few pieces of the puzzle out, to be honest.
Yes, 1,000%. Yes. This one comes in, and it's basically the law of cause and effect, right? Yeah. And it's that like the things that you do in your life, like you reap what you sow. Yeah. So like the other day I was driving home and I saw I live in a city, and I saw a bunch of guys standing around watching another guy beat the crap out of somebody, right? My horn's not working in my car. I'm like, what do I do? I couldn't honk the horn. I couldn't, I was like, and I'm like, but I'm thinking the thought did go through my head of like, well, this is the life that they want to create. Clearly they don't want to be like, I don't even know if the guy who was getting beat up, wanted to stop, right? Because he probably would turn around and do that. But it's like, you're going to get what you put out. And so if you're giving love, you're giving joy, you're giving gratitude, like you're going to receive back more love, more joy, more gratitude.
Yeah.
It's so simple. Like
it's so simple, but where I think people get off track, and this is where we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, because in some ways I feel like any one of these, if you take them just in small doses or you only take one, you are going to kind of falter a bit, because I think this one on the surface, it makes it seem like if you want love, just give love, but like just be more grateful. But I just caution in any manifestation practice, whenever you're like, we've talked about this in a million different ways, not even just in these episodes, but if you are doing X to get Y, check yourself. Because you can't be, I'm just all love and love and love because I want love back. Like, it has to truly come from a place of love. You have to truly be love, be expressing love, and be genuine about it. Because doing anything with a goal of getting something in return is not necessarily the practice we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, and intention is absolutely everything. Intention moves energy. Right? And that's, one things people are always like, how can I shift and change this energy? Right? Your intention will do that. It absolutely will. And, but if your intention is, it is kind of tricky because if you're like, well, my intention is to do this to get that, right? You're missing this is where it is, Deb. It's like you're missing the whole point, because to get that, you wanted that, right? Like, say it's like, I want to get the new and latest iPhone, right? And
it's always the why.
Well, not even that, because I don't know if you know this. That question drives me nuts when people ask that, why, because why gets us in our head.
Yeah.
Right? There's one thing that I learned from grad school. It was that, like, don't ask when you're in the counseling session, coaching, like, not ask the question why, because it gets them in their head. You want to get connected back to their heart.
True.
So
I guess because I think we've even had this exact conversation before, because I'm asking the why, as in, like, eventually I want someone to get to, what are you trying to feel?
and not, yeah. So you could say you want that for what purpose, right? That is like, oh, for this. But when somebody says why, like, it puts you into defense mode, and you're like, I have to defend this. And when we have that defensive energy, like, that creates resistance, right?
Totally. But I also will say, like, if you notice you're defensive about your why, it's an opportunity to check it. It really is, because truly, this is where you were going, I know, but, like, it is like you're trying to feel something.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, I'm going to, like, whatever, so I can get this phone. Really, at the end of the day, you want the feeling that the phone's going to bring.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you can tune into that feeling first and embody that feeling, it magnetizes, those things to you. And at the same time, you don't give a rat's ass if you get the thing or not, because ultimately all you wanted was the feeling.
Totally. And love is an excellent example, because my other counter to that, and I will fully admit, like, I would very much enjoy having the partner in my life. I do not have that at this moment, and that's okay. But if I want love, I can feel freaking love any goddamn time I want. I don't need him to be there. Right? So, like, that is a great example, is like, there's hundreds of different ways I can feel that, including just sit down and decide to feel it, because it comes from within anyway.
Yeah.
Like, the partner reflecting love to you is still coming from you.
Right. Because you've projected that they are making you feel that way.
Correct.
Just like me projecting my mom is making me feel irritated. All of a sudden I just switched it, and I was like, oh, my mom is now a conduit of gratitude, of love, of like joy, because I'm around this woman who hums. Whereas before it was like, this woman who hums, like, she is a representative of annoyance and irritation and frustration, right? Like, we all, like, use each other, right, to feel whatever it is that we want to feel.
Right.
My sweet little Charlie, like, I look at him all the time, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel so much love and joy. And I'm like, I think it was my first ayahuasca experience. After I got Charlie, I got this very, like, you're not going to have Charlie as long as you want. And I was like it sucked me in such a deep, deep place. And then I was like, by the end, I got to the place, I'm like, he's just pure love and joy. Pure love and joy is available to me at any time.
Absolutely.
And so even when he's not going to be here, like, he will always, always, always be with me. That pure love and joy is always with me. I can access it whenever I want. Yes, I want to access it. And then, like, this cute little, you should see him. His little face is like, just like staring at me. Like, I am like the cutest, like, I can't see his face, but he's like, he's just looking at me like, you're the most beautiful thing in the world, and I can't take my eyes off of you.
But that is why we fall so easily in love with pets, because that reflection of love is very easy to feel from an animal.
Right?
Because they aren't really expecting anything from us other than maybe some food. But yeah, I think that's why so many people can easily attach to a pet, and pets are a great way to practice feeling that. I don't know if I froze or you froze.
I don't know. I think we're back.
There we are. We're back.
Yeah.
Just a little pause there.
Yeah. So I just want to look at, so there's some comments. So, hey, David, I don't know if you're still on, but He says, and yes, it is right, because it's really challenging, like some of this stuff. And our world is the opposite of all of this, because our world is like, teachers are responsible for you, doctors are responsible for you, your employer's responsible for you, for your happiness.
Yeah.
It's not what we've been taught.
Yeah. Personal responsibility is not what we've been taught, you mean? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Like we are, well, I mean, yeah, that's that. I feel like I could go down a huge rabbit hole with that one.
Right.
But
Yeah.
Anyone watching or listening, I will take it back to, you can choose right now in this moment to say, I'm going to take responsibility for how I feel. I'm going to take responsibility for what I want to put out in the world.
Yeah.
It is that easy. And I know it's hard.
Yeah.
You'll slip up and you'll want to be a victim again, and you'll want to blame circumstances or blame your past, but you can always come back to right now and make a new decision.
Right. Right. And, just grasping onto the law of compensation of like, you put out shitty stuff, you're going to get shitty stuff back in return.
Right.
It's just, like, and here's, I think though, that another thing that people get tripped up on is like, well, I was really nice to people today and then people were jerky back to me. Okay. So sometimes it doesn't always work, time like that quick, right? Because like the more that you embody, like, we'll just use the love again, right? The more that you embody love, the more like the people in your life, if they don't match that frequency, they will do everything to get you to switch back, right? Because there's that codependency thing. It was like, no, you have to be that miserable person, right?
Yeah.
Or you have to be that person that, struggled and suffered and was the victim. But you're like, no, I want to be in love, and not in love like in romantically, but I want to be in the energy of love. And then those people start to just remove themselves from your life, and you're like, well, now I'm all alone.
Yeah.
And then like, this shit doesn't work, but it's like, well, now you have the space to pull in like the people that you want.
Yes.
And so we think like, oh, I'm just going to feel love, and all of a sudden it's just going to change everybody around me. Well, frequencies like lights, right? Yeah.
It still takes time. And the other thing I will say about that is, if someone's going to use that example of, well, I was nice to people all day today and they were shitty back to me. 2 points I want to make about that. What were you expecting?
Right.
That's that. And second point, you're choosing to notice that, right? So there is this, like that, say, it kind of piggybacks on what you were saying about like those people will kind of phase out. The stuff that's not in alignment with what you're currently feeling, it will not be in your awareness anymore. You will just cease to notice all of the things, all the shitty comments, they'll just right over your head, because you're just like, oh, I'm just focused on the loving things. And not even like, I think it becomes such a habit that then you aren't really thinking, I'm just going to focus on love, I'm going to ignore that. Like, yes, they're active decisions, but after you practice and practice and practice and notice when it does, like, you just notice it's okay. So that time it didn't necessarily go right, or I put my attention on the negative thing. Right. But, like, say it again, begin again, choose again.
Right. And it's like, you just choose to make an experiment. Like everything is an experiment, right? Just like, okay, I'm just going to experiment and see what happens with this, and then you can choose to go back to being not happy and, all that. You get to make that choice. It is just as much, it's just as much work. At first, it just becomes so much easier when you really begin to get in a place of like, I'm just going to be love. I'm just going to like, it's so magical. I will say though, for me, honestly, I can stay in it so much more. I know I said this 1,000 times, when I have proper nutrition and proper sleep. Oh my gosh, I am the most joyful, loving person to be around. But
it's all, that's kind of, I think, lends itself to the oneness. Like it's the energy. It's all the energy you're putting in and the energy you're giving out, and the care you're giving to your body is the care that's going to express itself out in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a big one. I mean, it's all freaking interrelated. And
Yeah.
not every day is going to be freaking perfect, right? Like, that's okay. The other piece of that, I don't even know if this falls into one of our universal laws, but I mean, everything does, is check where you're becoming too attached to an outcome, because it's fine to have expectations that people will be kind. It's fine to have expectations that you will have a good, abundant life, but you have to release the attachment to how that will show up, right? Because back to the example of the phone, right? Like, you think you want the phone, the car, the house, the boyfriend, whatever thing, because you want to feel a certain way. That feeling may not show up in that particular phone, car, house, man. However, it may show up differently. And then you'll realize, oh my gosh, the feeling that I did get what was intended for me, or I did get back what I was putting out. It just doesn't look like I attached to. It doesn't look like the idea I was so stuck on.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I can say that so much. Like, when I had my bakery, and when I left my bakery, there's a lot of grief there, but when I really peeled back the layers, I realized that, ultimately what I wanted was to be able to impact people's lives and to serve people. And I realized I can do that, yeah. Like, I mean, having a gluten-free, allergen-friendly bakery, like, that impacted so many lives. Like, I mean, that stories, I can't even tell y'all, like, the stories that, people, not even just of like kids who were like, come in and they're like, I've never been able to eat a birthday cake. Like, this is the first birthday cake I've ever had. Like, that, I'd hear every single day. But there was the stories of people who were addicted to sugar, and they'd, be like, oh, this is something better. And they'd come in, I'd see them every day. And then I'd see them every couple of days. And then I'd see them every week. And then I'd see them every 2 weeks. And they'd come in and they're like, Heather, I'm really sorry I haven't been here. I miss you, but I just don't really want sweets anymore. And I'm like, that's why I'm here. Like, but
Yeah.
like, it is like, I could do that. I can do that and like, I get to impact people's lives now, like, through my practice of, coaching and energy work. I impact so many people's lives. Like,
right.
And so I could go and do that in any way I want.
Right. And that expression may change over time, right? Like, we do, it's human nature. Like, we think we know what path we want to take, but that's a constant practice. Like I said, to just kind of, that goes back to our forcing versus allowing. And, there's just so many pieces to it.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, there's so many pieces, and it's way more simple than we make it. We like to complicate things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, literally, like, it boils down to the golden rule, right? Love others as you would, love yourself. Well, and people are like, well, I don't love myself really well, right? And it's like, well, just love. I mean, it really comes down to love.
Yeah.
And I say this, like, if you're like, yeah, but I don't love myself, I don't have this is where we get to do the work, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, there's not, oh, I did, one energy work session and like, I'm not any different. I mean, that's like going into a hoarder's house and throwing away, one magazine and being like, well, their house doesn't really look any different. Like, you got to excavate some shit. Like, is work. Let me say, like, I just finished this hypnotherapy thing, and we were all talking about how we do the work, like, get in there. Oh, and here's more stuff that comes up. Crap. Like, today I had a session and I was like, I don't even know where that came from. Like, what I worked through. It's like, just stuff comes up. And so being willing to just continue to clear out stuff. And you do get to a point. I mean, I think I'm very much at a point where I'm like the other day, I did such a stupid girl thing. And I don't know if I told you or if you've seen, but I got a paddleboard, and it's like changed my life, right? Because I love being out on the water. And I borrowed my friend's air pump to put,
Mhm.
plug into the thing. Well, again, dumb girl thing, but when I used it, I turned the key on, used it, and then when we went to deflate it, turned the key on, and then my car wouldn't start. Oh man, my car wouldn't start. And then later I realized you have to turn the car actually on, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know this.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is that I was just like, oh, my battery's dead. Let me call my friend to see if she can come help us. Whereas in the past, like from how I was brought up, I would have been so pissed off at myself, like yelling and like so irritated. And I felt zero level of irritation. It was just like, oh, my battery's dead. I think I drained my battery. Let me get
Yeah.
help.
Right.
Like, you can do it where, get to a place where things don't bother you as much, but there's still going to be stuff that comes up, but you got to do the work.
There's still going to be stuff that comes up. I mean, I'll go back to a few weeks ago, we got a flat tire, which
Right.
spiraled into a complete meltdown of I'm never going to have a man in my life. But then like I checked myself and I found the humor in it. And you know what? I like that story because like I can think about it now and I'm like, that's fucking funny. I mean, I was like in hilarious state of despair, like crying, like I don't know what to do. And then called a friend and he was like, well, I mean, don't you have like roadside assistance on your insurance? I'm like, oh, look at that. Yep, I do.
Right. Yeah. But you were also in weren't you tired then? And like,
I was tired. I think I just got my period. Like it was like a perfect storm of like, okay, like this, here's one more pile on. But sometimes you kind of need that to like, I don't know, like it's not, in the end, it was funny. And I got some tears out. Maybe I just needed to release it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, so if you want to like have a more prosperous life and just step into a higher frequency of energy, right? So that your life is more abundant, more joyful, more fun, more playful, more pleasurable, right? It really is like, speak into existence what you desire, right? And like just give that. If you desire it, just give, like just be it. Not and without the expectation, that it's going to come back, because at the end of the day you are it. Right? You are the thing that you desire. You're the feeling, like, you are the happiness that you desire. You are the joy that you desire. You are the contentment, the peace, the like abundance. Walk.
I don't know if it's my internet or yours. Like we're stuck. Oh, are you back?
My Wi-Fi just kicked it.
I'm like, is this me? And I'm just sitting here like, I'll edit this in our before we publish it.
Yeah.
That's
No,
funny.
apparently I'm like, what's going on? I clicked on my Wi-Fi and it like bumped off and went to something else. I have no idea why.
Oh, that's funny. It was just stuck.
Whatever.
All right. Well, this is the universe telling us to wrap it up because we've been talking for a little while. Yeah.
So have fun being the energy of the thing that you desire. Right? Release expectation of when it should come to you.
Right. Shoulds are never good. Yeah.
Breathe. And then, if you keep feeling stuck, reach out, let us help you. Like your energy. I heard this statement today, and I know that you're going to love this. And this is Liz, who is teaching this hypnotherapy course. And I was like, oh my gosh, how? But she said, beliefs are energetic strongholds. I was like, oh, it's so true, right? And so if you have the belief, that this is what you're going to get, like that is an energetic stronghold, and we have to shift that in your body. You have to get energy out of your body. And so we're here to help.
I have two things I want to quickly just promote if anybody got this far in listening. If you are in Phoenix, Tempe, Arizona area, I am now actually accepting in-person appointments. I have a couple openings a week to do, it'd be Reiki sound healing. That's super exciting. So you can go to my website and find that there, steammysticism.com. And I have a workshop coming up on June 25th, also in Tempe at Source Connection. If anybody's following me, probably see me promoting that. But this will be a Meeting Your Shadows with Love workshop, which I love this stuff. So this is, it's somewhat related to everything we've been talking about, but it's really examining those pieces of you that are keeping you stuck. It's a state of protection, but looking at those pieces of you that are there trying to protect you, and then loving them so that you can work with them instead of against them.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have to judge it, but I am so excited because this whole just download of teaching people, of how, like, creating this program to teach people how to release the trapped emotions and trauma, like through this, 8-step transformational. I'm still like, the name is like all like, but I'm still calling it conscious energy coaching, right? But it is like to learn how to identify and shift out this stuff that's keeping you trapped, so that you can just easily, manifest what it is that you want to what that it is that you desire. And so I'm working on that. So I'm going to be sharing about a challenge, 4-day challenge that I'm having. So be on the lookout for that. And I did just finished this hypnotherapy training. So, that's going to be added into the work, that I do. So I'm excited. That's lots
so fun. I love like just kind of learning new ways to approach all of this, because not everything resonates with everyone, and sometimes you come at it from a slightly different angle, and that was the magic ingredient, right? So
exactly.
Yeah, reach out to either one of us, and we love to help. So
yeah. Here's my info, and we will see you next time. And please still, feel free and let us know if there's certain topics that you'd like to hear us talk about. And
yeah, we have a few more laws to cover, but we don't mind taking sidetracks.
Yeah,
clearly.
Awesome. Thank you for listening. Have a great whatever you are, wherever you are listening to this, day, night, afternoon. We will see you next time.
Right. Bye.